Rice seems to pose a problem with many people, so I decided to make a quick video on my foolproof method for perfect rice every time. Warning, this method flies in the face of the vast majority of people who claim to make the perfect rice. This is kitchen serious. Besides showing you my super simple method, I thought I'd also include a couple recipes other than fried rice that you can make with your leftover rice. One is a ridiculously easy, simple dessert, and the other could be a light appetizer or even a meal. So let's first get to the selection of the rice. Let's face it, there's a million options in the store, so let me just simplify your choice for you. Unless I'm making risotto or sushi rice, which require more of a short grain rice, I'll always go with a long grained rice. And now the two most popular variants of long grained rice are jasmine and basmati. For this video, I'm actually using basmati. Right off the bat, I'm leaving out a step that you'll read in nearly every guide about cooking rice. Maybe you've already guessed it, but here goes. I don't spend the time to wash it 3 to 5 times.
Are you insane?
In fact, unless there's evidence of dirt or rocks or other foreign objects, I don't wash it at all. Instead, I saute the rice before I add my water. This is known as parching. Anyone who's made a rice pilaf knows this method well. It's definitely not a secret, and it's been used in other countries for many, many years. So I'm gonna grab a stock pot and bring some oil up to medium-high heat. A nice saute temperature is fine. At this point, you can actually flavor your oil with a variety of your favorite seasonings, like cumin or turmeric, chili powder, you name it. And the heat is going to be fairly high. I don't let it sit too long. Now just move it around until your eyes and ears tell you it's ready for the liquid. You'll start to notice a light toasting of the kernels as well as a nutty smell. Once this happens, you're good to go with the liquid. Now if you're making this for a savory dish, which I do probably 9 times out of 10, I really like using chicken or beef stock. This really ups the flavor. But of course, if you just want to use water, that's okay too. The water to rice ratio is probably the biggest culprit when trying to troubleshoot an iffy batch of rice. So here goes. To produce 4 cups of cooked long grain rice, use 1 3/4 cup of liquid and 1 cup of uncooked long grain rice. That's it. 1 3/4 cups of liquid. If it seems odd, let me make it even easier. That can of stock that you have, guess what? That is exactly 1 3/4 cups of liquid. So add this to 1 cup of rice when you're done parching it, and you're good to go. Once the liquid goes in, bring it up to a boil and immediately lower the heat to a simmer. From here, the lid goes on, and people, it stays on. No lifting and checking or stirring. Leave it alone for 18 minutes. After the time's up, I then remove it from the heat, and then I'll pull the lid off. Leave it alone for another 10 minutes. That's right, no stirring or fluffing yet, as much as you want to. Let it rest for another 10 minutes. From here, you can fluff away. And look at this beautiful rice. It's perfectly done, no pools of water, no big starchy clumps, just tender, separated rice. Now, as promised, if you find yourself with leftover rice, either from your kitchen or a local Chinese takeout, I've got a couple of recipes to throw at you. First up, I'm making a version of an Italian or even Middle Eastern fried rice ball. In Italy, they call it arancini. Only instead of frying, I'm using an air fryer, and you won't believe how these turned out. So I'm going to heat up some oil, and I've chopped up some shallots, and I have some garlic. Saute this in with a little oil, and I'm going to add a little oregano and basil. Now these don't need long to cook because the dice is pretty small. After about 60 to 90 seconds, I'm going to move this out into a bowl and add our rice. I've got about 2 cups of leftover rice here. To this, I'm going to add some fresh parsley as well as some lemon zest. If you really want that hit of citrus, I would use a whole lemon. Otherwise, using about half is a great way to just brighten up the filling without being too overpowering. Next up, I'm going to add a 1/3 cup of Parmesan, and lastly, our binder, which is going to be a couple eggs. Get all this nice and incorporated, and now we're ready to stuff and form into balls. My personal favorite is to cube up your favorite cheese and then form the ball around it for the ultimate gooey factor in the middle. Something around the size of a golf ball is perfect. That translates to about a quarter cup of filling, which I'll flatten. I'll then place my cube in the middle and then just kind of enclose it around it and form it into a ball. These will be kind of on the fragile side, so handle with care. With this step out of the way, I'm going to put these in the freezer for 20 minutes. This will give them just enough time to hold their shape while you bread them. This also gives me time to prepare the breading, which it's a classic dry, wet, dry technique. I'm going to season up my flour with a little salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder. The second bowl is going to have our eggs with just a little bit of water in there. Lastly, I'm using an Italian blend of panko breadcrumbs. These can be on the larger side, so I like to throw them in a bag and then work on them with a little roller. It's also a great way to bread smaller objects without making an absolute mess. So we'll give it a light dusting of flour. Then our egg wash. And finally over to the panko. So the flour helps the egg stick, thereby allowing the panko to stick. Even though I am using the air fryer, I'm going to hit these with a little canola to help with the browning. I'm doing 4 at a time. I don't want to crowd these. You want lots of room for air circulation. We're going to go 375 for 5 minutes. After 5, you can see they got some nice color. We're going to flip these and go for 5 more. All right, these are done, and oh my God, they're super crunchy, and they have that classic fried texture without the mess. Oh, look at that cheese. These are great as is, but I enjoy them with a little salt and parm on top, and even a little marinara dipping sauce. Now the other dish is for all you sweet tooths. Rice pudding. And you can't ask for a recipe to be any easier. This is 2 cups of cooked rice with 1.5 cups of milk. You could also use something heavier. Coconut milk would also be really good in this. And next I'm going to add about 1/3 cup of sugar. And now we just play the waiting game. You just bring it up to a medium high. A strong simmer and just give it some time to thicken up. How thick it is up to you. The longer it goes, the thicker it's going to get. But when it does cool, it will thicken considerably, so keep that in mind. All right, and this has been simmering for about 10 minutes. You can see how thick it is, kind of like a thick oatmeal. That's kind of how I like it. And so for adding the rest of the stuff, I'm going to pull it off the heat and keep it moving in the pan a little bit. And this is where we're going to add some vanilla. Right around a teaspoon. We're also going to follow this up with a pat or 1 tablespoon of unsalted butter. And now we're going to add a couple eggs to give it that custard texture. You can add eggs straight into this hot mix, so long as you keep it stirring vigorously as you're doing so. But to play it safe, I'm going to temper this. So the thinking behind tempering is just adding a little bit of the hot sauce, bringing the temperature up to our cold ingredients, which are the eggs, and then it's going to be a lot safer to add to the main mixture. Keep stirring vigorously until all those eggs are incorporated and we melt that butter off. Then you can transfer that to a larger dish, and I don't know about you, but I've always liked this cold. And I've definitely seen raisins at this point being added, so if you're a raisin person, feel free to add a bunch now. So this is the following day after it's had a nice long chill in the fridge, and you can see it is just nice and thick and beautiful. If you like fresh fruit, you could top this with a little bit of that. I've got some blueberries, but you can't forget the cinnamon. Always put a little bit of cinnamon on top. And there we go, rice pudding. Simple and really, really delicious. So I really hope you found this rice technique helpful. And if you have any leftover rice, please give the rice pudding and the rice balls a chance. They are really, really good. Thanks for checking out Kitchen Series, everybody. I will see you in the next one.